Hello everyone, we are Group 7. Today we'd like to talking about the cross-cultural study between China and Brazil. Our presentation divided into 4 parts: brief introduction to the Brazil, business etiquette and customs, a national cultural profile, and a case study.
Okay, thank you, Joy. And let me introduce about the background of Brazil. And on the map of the world, Brazil is located in south and is in north of the South American. And the next page see this national map. And in this national map, we can see Brazil has 26 states and have a federal district, and it is in the middle in Brazil. And the next one let us to look at the national flag of Brazil. And Brazilian flag is divided into 4 parts, and there are the green backgrounds. It means the foreigns of Brazil. And in the middle has a yellow diamond, and it means Brazil have rich mineral resources. And inside the yellow diamond, and it has a blue globe, and it has 26 stars in there, and it means the 26 stage. At the same time, those 27 stars is represent night constellation. It has a bright bolt around the globe, and it represents order and progress. And the next page, and this page is show us the different constellations is represented by the different stars. And the next page, and you can also see on this page that the location of each picture is according with specific regulation. And the next one, let's looking at the relations in Brazil. And first, Brazil is a country of immigrants, and a lot of immigrants came from all of the worlds. And they are mixed Eastern and Western religions in Brazil. So Brazil, the Catholic is the main religion of Brazil, and is around 19% believers is believe Catholics. And the next one, the second religion, and that is cartoon religions, and that is Africa religions, and they come from Africa. And after they come to spread into Brazil, and they have a change to nowadays religions. So it still have 5 to 7% nowadays is still believe these religions. And the next page we will talk about the main cultural festival. And you can see Brazil has many festivals, and because they have met different people, and they are come from over all of the world. And the main festival is the Brazil Carnival, and the Carnival is the biggest festival of the Brazil. The Carnival is 47 days before the Easter, and usually in the middle or late February. and this festival is came from the European immigrants, and this festival is like Chinese New Year in Brazil. So that is a famous and important festival in Brazil. And the next one is the Holy Spiritual Days, and this one is traditional Portuguese festival. And in this day, the people will wear costumes and mask dominated by cows, goats, or some uh, cows and pirates. And they will wear different clothes, and in that day they have many performance and some party, and in they want to use this festival to hope that each other is have happiness from the Brazilians.
Now, I'm going to present the business. First of all, when the Brazilian meet to each other in the first time, or they are not actually know each other, it will be in a very formal way, a handshake. But if they know each other just like a friend, they will use a hug or a kiss with face face to face, and then just like the picture, the face that we see, it's touch the face and then have a kiss, and then the other side. And the first time we start to call the first time they start to call each other, will normally have a Mr. or Mrs. and then plus the first names in the meetings business. But after they feel, oh, we are friends now, they will directly call each other names. And next page, please. In closing, usually Brazilian is very careful about their dressing. Even though in a usual, they will male will have a at least a short shirt and a long trousers, and female will have a long type slave dress. In the business, male will have a very traditional suit, just like we wear in the year one, in after year one, uh, uh, a shirt and a tie and then a glove. And about the female, they will have they can wear shirts, they can wear skirt, they can wear pants shirt, but they are they need to avoid to be dressed like a man, which means not man style shirts, but can be a female styled. And then next page, please. And about the thing we have to attention when we meet to the Brazilian, in the first meet, we can start calling the names with Mr. and Mrs. in first, and then plus the first name, and then use a handshake, because in the first meet we still don't know each other, and the name cards should be having at least one side for Portuguese language. And then be attention, the thing we must not do is we never start to our business topic before the holder or the Brazilian want to start. Normally they want to, if they want to having a meeting, they will not start by their business. They will start by some casual talking to make each other more closer, and then after that they will start the meeting. Then the next part.
Okay, let me introduce part 3 about the national cultural profile. From Hofstede's 5 dimensions, that is power distance, individualism, masculinity, and certainty, avoidance, and long-term orientation. And on the right, the figures are our definition, our defined scores. from Brazil and China. On the left is Brazil's power distance definition, and on the right is China's. And their scores are not very similar, but China is higher, and due to some reasons, because in Brazil, society believes in respecting the hierarchy and inequalities to exist among the Brazilians, and the upper strata of society has more benefits than those in the lower strata of society. And also there's nature of primogeniture exists. And in companies, there is one boss who takes one on leadership responsibility, which is very a little bit different from China, as China usually has a board of chair to control the company, and also in Brazil, statues, symbols of power are very important in order to indicate social position and communicate the respect that could be shown. And on China's hand, China society believes that inequalities amongst people are acceptable, and the subordinate superior relationship trends to be polarized, and there is no defense against power abuse by superiors, which is once the superior says one thing, that is for sure and cannot be changed by by downstream employees, and individuals are influenced by formal authority and sanctions that are in general optimistic about people's capacity for leadership and initiative. And people should not have aspirations beyond the rank in China, and which is acceptable among people. And next page talks about individualism. The two countries are both has a very both low score, and they are both collectivism, but there are also some difference between them. In Brazil, society believes in they both beliefs in collectivism and Brazilian usually are integrated into strong and cohesive groups, and in work environments, since senior powerful member of a family is expected to help a younger nephew to be hired for a job in his own company. And similar situation in China, which people act in the interest of a group, and in-group considerations affecting hiring and promotions with closer in-groups such as family are getting preferential treatment. In Brazil, the most preferred communication style is context-rich, and in business, it is important to build up trustworthy and long-lasting relationships. In Brazil, and China also has the same situation. Personal relationship prevail over task and company. And next page talks about masculinity, which is is a little bit difference between Brazil and China. One is neutral and one is masculinity. In Brazil, people believes in respecting individuals on the basis of seniority, irrespective of gender, and believes in equality between masculinity and female. And however, on occasion, priority goes to masculinity. And in China, masculine society's success oriented is oriented and driven, and the need to ensure success can be exemplified by the fact that many Chinese will sacrifice family and leisure priorities to work. And also in China, students care very much about their exam scores and ranking, as is the main criteria to achieve success or not. And this is due to some political issues and China's situation. And next page is talks about certainty avoidance. which is very different between Brazil and China. While Brazil has higher score, much higher score, and one is high uncertainty avoidance and one is low. And because in Brazil, society generally relied on absolute truth, which dictates everything and people know what it is. But China, truth may be related through in the immediate social circles. There is concern for truth with a capital T and rules, but not necessarily laws around. And in Brazil, as in all high uncertainty avoidance societies, bureaucracy, laws, and rules are very important to make the world as a safer place to live in. And the individuals need to obey these rules, however, cannot be kept. Additional rules and are dictated. But in China, laws and rules may be flexible to suit and the actual situation and pragmatism and is effective life, which is there are many gray areas to follow, and the Chinese are very comfortable with ambiguity, and Chinese language is full of ambiguous meanings that can be difficult for Western people to follow. And Chinese are adaptable and entrepreneurial. And next page is about long-term orientation, which compared to last page, these scores are opposite. China has a higher score due to their long-term orientation, but Brazil also is like short-term orientation, because in China, pragmatic it is pragmatic culture, and in societies with a pragmatic orientation, people believe that truth depends very much on situation, context, and time, which is very flexible, and Chinese show an ability to adapt traditions easily to changed conditions, a strong propensity to save and invest. But in Brazil, when it comes to think about the future of the company, Brazilian lacks of persistence and thrift. Also, in Brazil, they prefer to maintain time-honored traditions and norms and view by any societal change as a content of a suspension. And that is a short-term oriented. They would like to think and plan things in short term. And next page is Hall's context model. And both two countries are high context communication environment, and there are some differences and similarities. About similarities, in both country, family is centered. Social life is the family centered. That is, they both care about families, and they are both collectivistic countries. And attitudes, behaviors, and feelings are very important in both countries. And in indirect, informal, face-to-face, mutual, based on feeling and background information communications are happened in Brazil, both in Brazil and China, and people are also prefer permanent relationships. But about differences, in Brazil, they raise big families, but the situation in China in old times, there are also big families, but now it's trying to be similar due to policies and people's awareness. And in Brazil, individuals are more important than business, and they do not follow strict rules in doing business. But in China, group interest is upper upon individual interest, and they follow strict business rules. And once, if they against the rules and the laws, and people will fight against them. And also in China, timekeeping is very important, and less nonverbal gestures are happened, which means in China, maybe some face-to-face talking is very is very enough for people to communicate. And in Brazil, they has flexible time management and rich in nonverbal gestures, which means they are more rich gestures to have rich gestures happening in communications. And that's part 3.
In part 4, we will have the case studies. Visually, a Britannian is a representative of tea company. She came to China and to negotiate a joint project with her Chinese partner, Philip Chen. Louis, the security of Juliet, also came. The meeting is scheduled at 3 to 5 p.m. today. Mr. Chen went to the airport to pick up his Brazilian partners. A lady and a gentleman came up to him. Mr. Chen stepped forward to shake and greet with the man.
Nice to meet you. I'm Philip Trent. Is this lady is your secretary?
Nice to meet you too. I'm Louis, the secretary of Julia. Julia is the representative of our company.
Mr. Chen felt embarrassed and apologized to Julie. The meeting began at 3 p.m. as scheduled. The discussion went very well. Soon, nearly 2 hours passed. The meeting is coming to the end.
Why don't we discuss long-term plans?
Just focus the present project. It is too early to think about future. By the way, time is up. The meeting is drawing to close.
Okay, well, it doesn't matter. Let's continue.
Juliet felt upset but continued discussing with Mr. Chen. After the meeting, Mr. Chen invited Juliet and Louis to have dinner.
I would like to visit you in Brazil.
That's great. When do you plan to come?
Oh, I will visit when I free.
So we can see there are several conflicts in this case between Mr. Chen and Julia. Let me identify them and explain. The first one is due to the masculinity. When Mr. Chen went to the airport, he greeted Louis, the man, first. From Mr. Chen's point of view, the man must be the leader and the lady should be the secretary. Actually, Mr. Chen was absolutely wrong. Julia is the representative of the company. From this, we can see that in Chinese traditional view, the leader or representative is always a man. And referred to the Hofstadter model, the Chinese score of masculinity is higher than Brazil. So the tips for improving this interaction is typically for Chinese. The Chinese should get rid of this stereotype. Everyone could be the leader regardless of gender. Then next conflict between Mr. Chen and Julia is due to the long-term orientation. At the end of the meeting, Mr. Chen went to discuss long-term plans. However, Julia thinks just focus on present project is okay. Don't need to think or plan ahead. From the Hofstadter model, we know that China is long-term oriented culture. Chinese like to plan and prepare ahead to avoid accident. We always do some long-term plans. But Brazil is in short-term oriented culture. Brazilians prefer to focus on current. They prefer live in the moment. Work out the present problem for them is okay. This is the biggest difference between Chinese and Brazilian. The tip for Brazilian is to take precaution that can avoid accident. But in this situation, Mr. Chen should know that Julia is not that familiar with how Chinese deal with affairs. So it is better to add the items into the agenda the Brazilian can avail. The last two conflict between Mr. Chen and Julia is due to the different level of uncertainty avoidance. When the meeting is drawing to close, Mr. Chen wants to have a further discuss, but Julia points out the time is up, the meeting should be closed. Mr. Chen don't care about the time, he said, never mind, let's continue. We can see that the Brazilian tend to follow the schedule seriously and feel uncomfortable with the delay or change. On the contrary, Mr. Chen, the Chinese, doesn't encourage the change and familiar with it. Another thing is after the dinner, uh, Mr. Chen said she wanted to visit Julia in Brazil, but Julia took it more like a cultural speaking, but Julia took it seriously and asked when will Mr. Chen come. Mr. Chen silent for a moment and said he will come when he was free. In fact, this is an ambiguous answer. From the Hofstede model, we know that China is in weak uncertainty avoidance culture. Brazil is in strong uncertainty avoidance cultures. Chinese are comfortable with ambiguity and always sate with ambiguity. However, most of the foreigners cannot figure out or understand the ambiguities word. So the tips for improving this interaction is it is better to follow the schedule, try to solve the problem in scheduled time. If you really want to have a further discussion, please ask the permission of your partner first. Chinese are comfortable with ambiguity, but we should avoid such ambiguity when communicating with foreigners to avoid misunderstanding. So that's all of our case. This is our reference. That's all of our presentation. Thank you for listening.